All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthy Empath podcast. I am joined today with my new friend, Dylan Olsen. Dylan is a natural born rebel who honors the human spirit by defying the societal status quo. A teacher to many and student of all, he uses his creative talents to connect with others on a visceral level and transcend the conventional human experience. As a transformational coach, esteemed writer, and multi-faceted musician, he uses creativity and imagination as alchemical tools to transform the human spirit and alleviate the illusion of suffering on the planet. As a founder of the Authentic Brotherhood, he facilitates a space and assists men of all ages in letting go of their traditional masculine programming and opening themselves up to discovering their own authentic masculinity. He is also a co-owner of the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery, where he works with instructors from all over the world to bring the world healing in an affordable, attainable, and modern way. From a traumatic childhood and an adolescence rife with addiction and suicidal romanticism, he has since awakened and uses his relatable experiences as a means to connect with others and equip them with tools and techniques to transform their lives from the inside out. All right. Dylan, welcome.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're going to be chatting about being human, being an empath, masculinity, all kinds of good stuff. But can we get started off with you sharing, whatever just comes up for you about your journey thus far, right? How you've gotten to this space, and anything you want to share about that, the wisdom extracted, any major players and anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, and as the, in my bio, I struggled with addiction and really living out of childhood trauma for much of I'm 29, I turned 30 this year. And so, but for the first basically 2.5 decades of my life, that I could be considered to be fully conscious, out of that child like innocence. I really was just living out of that programming, and I was totally unaware of it, just like in this mire, in this maelstrom of suffering that I was unaware that I was creating myself. And so how I characterized it in, I'm a part of a collaborative book that'll be released in the fall called From Bottom to Top. And in that, I talk about my spiritual journey has been, and I think it's like this for pretty much everybody, it's revelation and revisitation. So we'll like have these really brilliant revelations or these eye-opening experiences, and then we'll like revisit these old patterns, and we'll kind of revisit, maybe there's some fear that we kind of fall back into it, or maybe it's curiosity and we want to kind of test our new skills or our new awareness in this, and revisiting these old ways. And most of the time when I would revisit, it just didn't have the same luster. So living out of that old programming, I my addictions first started with like video games. As a child, I was more of a escape artist, like more of a Houdini. I was just like, I wanted to escape my reality and escape the suffering that I perceived that I was in. So it was video games. And then kind of that looming sense of inadequacy took me into pornography. And then from there, discovered drugs and alcohol when I was probably like 18, 19 is when I really started diving in. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I thought I could actually escape myself. And all that did was just cause more pain and suffering. And I think too, when I look back, a big piece of my my affinity for drugs and alcohol and the numbing they provided was that I had trouble accepting my gifts as an empath because it was a lot. And I don't think I fully understood what it was that I was experiencing with like just that sensitivity to energy, feeling into other people's states of being, and even not even fully understanding my state of being and how to create that. And so my 20s were just a lot of, whoa, this is, all right, let's see. There we go. Silence that. So it was just a lot of self-sabotage and these addictive behaviors. And And so I basically went through broken relationships. I was struggled with suicidal thoughts, and I even attempted suicide a few years ago, or at least put myself in the position to commit suicide. And it really, I just kept doing this shit over and over and over. And eventually, a couple years ago, I ended up getting a DUI. And at first, the DUI happened, and I approached it like most everyone else that got a DUI and was lost in that way of being, where I just, was blaming, kind of putting the blame outward, and continuing in the way of being that I was in, which was still drinking, still hanging out with the same relationships that enabled me. But then I had this clicking moment about a month after that happened. And it was just a really clear, this moment of immense clarity where it was like, I'm not going to live this lifestyle anymore. I just can't. I can't sustain it. And it doesn't sustain me. And so from there, I just made a lot of radical shifts in myself, where I just basically relinquished my entire sense of identity to source. And I took up a healthy lifestyle, a sober lifestyle, spent my time reading, exercising, and in my spiritual practice, and really diving in and doing the work. And so through that experience, that awakening, I really just opened up the floodgates. And then from there, I was introduced to Aisha at IAWESOME, which is the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery. I was invited in initially as a founding faculty for like the men's work I do. But then I rapidly moved my way into being a primary partner in the business. And and so from there, it's just really things, miracles just started flooding in. And I would say that brings us to now. I just really fell in love with myself and with life and with doing the work. And since then, it's just been one miracle after another. And more opportunities for me to share my journey and wisdom with others has just been flowing in. So yeah.
Beautiful. So are you aware? So, okay, if you don't have an exact answer at this time, but if you do, so for these destructive patterns that you were talking about, are you aware of the underlying, thought forms or belief systems or, stories that was there causing these behaviors, and perhaps where they came from?
Yeah. So when I was a child, so my dad committed suicide when I was 6, and that really shaped me a lot. And I think that was actually a huge piece of why I'm into the men's work, because I never had a frame of reference. And then my mom had a couple other marriages. But the false belief that was instilled from that was that I'm undeserving and unworthy of love. Because as a child, when, finding out that my dad took his own life, I internalized that personally. And a year after he took his life, I was taken advantage of sexually by these older boys who lived down the street from me. And I used to call it technically, I was molested, but in my reframing, it was more that I had no idea what was going on. I was so innocent as a child. For me, it was like, oh, we're touching parts and this, whatever. But the way that it was passed down to me, because they actually were molested by their uncle. And then they took this game and they played it with all the other boys in the neighborhood. But while it was happening, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't have any sense of shame or guilt because I was so innocent. But it wasn't until the parents in the neighborhood found out what was going on. And my mom at the time was we were going to church. So the people in the church told my mom, if she told her mother-in-law that this was going on, that my grandma was going to take us away from her. And so naturally, my mom, wanting to protect her children and feeling that fear, she told me, you can't tell your grandma about this. But what I internalized it as was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm disgusting. And that was probably at 7 years old was the time I first felt crippling shame and guilt. And I didn't know why. And so the two biggest false beliefs that were instilled in me before I was even 10 years old, in my formative years, were I'm undeserving and unworthy of love, and I should be ashamed of myself, and there's something wrong with me. And so I grew up not loving myself sexually, and having no sexual confidence, and believing I was undeserving of love. So every relationship I had naturally was broken because I didn't believe I deserved it. And any sense of abundance or opportunity or just goodness and positivity that came into my life, I didn't believe I deserved. So I self-sabotaged everything, and I became a very isolated creature. And those two false beliefs really stemmed into it was a lot of self-loathing. I did not love myself. I did not take care of myself. I couldn't even see a way out. It was like these cataracts that just blinded me. Or it was almost like I was holding my hands over my eyes and complaining that I couldn't see, but all the while I was the one just covering my eyes. And yeah, those two false beliefs really fucked me up for a long time. Yeah, I would say those are the two main ones.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Comparison, because it's like that with most things, right? We're usually the ones putting these barriers over ourselves, which makes sense because that's we're the ones that have to remove them and do the healing work, right? Only we can do it. And then also with the experience of those boys in the neighborhood too, that makes me think, or when you were saying that, it comes up how a lot of these things can be in a way neutral, but then it's the story that is imposed upon them, either during or after. And you were too young and innocent to come up with a nefarious story for it, and that was done for you afterwards and then passed down to you. And I think that's just a really good reflection, because that can happen with a lot of things, even things that we might think are inherently wrong, but in reality, I guess everything is neutral, right? And it's all a story, and it's all up to the story that we place on it. And so what were the any like big driving experiences, or I think you mentioned some, but just because it takes a lot of work to kind of rewire these kind of conditioning. So were there particular tools, practices, experiences that really kind of helped break through that initially, or maybe some stuff you do now as well to continue to support that?
So a lot of what really pushed me into kind of the shattering of myself, or the relinquishing of my idea of myself, was just a lot of tragedy, and it was self-imposed, self-induced tragedy. So because of my all of those false beliefs and those deleterious thought patterns and all that stuff I would do, and the things I believed about myself, I was constantly putting myself in really bad situations. I think I was freshly 21, maybe 22. And one night I ended up going out and drinking at the bar, and I was in a really bad way and drank until blackout. And while I was blacked out, apparently I had called a cab. And while I was in the cab, I fell asleep. So naturally, the taxi cab driver, as his policy and procedure, called the police. Because sometimes if you wake up someone while they're blacked out, they are violent. And sure as shit, the police came to wake me up, and I was violent. And I committed assault and battery on two police officers, even though I was probably like 130 pounds, and just the two cops didn't have an issue with me. But I was being very belligerent, and miraculously, so one of the cops wanted to throw me in the drunk tank and take me to jail. And he was straight up just like, nope, this guy's got to get 5 years, screw this kid. The other one, though, apparently was known as being a softie, amongst the other police officers. And, but while I was in that state, apparently I just broke down on the sidewalk, and, after they subdued me, and, just kind of poured out all the stuff that was going on inside of me. and he felt compassion for me. And so he called my mom, and he was like, "You need to come pick your son up. Like this is everything that happened." And so she picked me up, and he had compassion for me and let me go. And so then 3 days later, I checked myself into rehab. Now, this is really where I got introduced to spirituality, because rehab, AA and NA didn't do it for me. I know that they work for some people. It didn't work for me. I didn't like the sob stories, if I'm being completely honest. There was no, this is how my life is better. It was always, this is how bad my life sucked. And I didn't like that approach. But while I was in rehab, my counselor gave me, he was like, "You will like this book. Read this book." And it was The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. And that book, I remember just sitting up at late every night, just reading this book. And it really it unlocked something inside of me. So when I got out of rehab, I mean, I was meditating. I was just reading as much spiritual literature as I could, because I was just like, these ideas were so liberating. And so I was really into the spiritual stuff, but then I was still in denial about living that old lifestyle. And I was still attached to my idea of myself. So naturally I reverted back. And then a few years later, I ended up going to South America. I had met a woman, and was super I was full on like, yes, let's do this. Super in love, super infatuated. And so I followed her down to South America. I had quit my jobs, went and shoveled snow off of rooftops to make the money, and made it down to South America. And it was great. We traveled for 4 months. We ended up living in Peru for 3 of them, in a city called Iquitos, in the Amazon. But I didn't deal with my shadows, and so my shadows followed me, and they began to deal with me. And the Coke was extremely cheap, and the booze was really cheap. And so I always had an 8-ball in my fanny pack. I always had a bottle of Johnny Walker Red in my backpack. And I was like, great, I don't have to deal with any of my shit, because I can just be high and drunk all the time. And then shit got really bad. And I, one night, ended up, this is where I basically a series of events where I was really drunk. I felt emasculated because I couldn't protect my partner. And so I went out drinking, got lured to a hotel, or invited to a hotel by a prostitute, where my shame actually saved my ass, because she had been like, "Do you have protection?" And I was like, "Well, no." And at this point I'd already paid her. And I was like, "Can you go get it?" Because I was so ashamed. I just wanted to die in the room. And she actually, the universe graced me with that. She just left with my money and never came back. And so nothing happened. And I'm so grateful. But in the moment, it was when that happened, I really kind of was like, what the fuck am I doing? But I went back to my apartment, and long story short, the keys ended up in the street. I had to climb over a gate so that I could get the keys, because you needed the keys not only to get into the apartment, but also out. And while I was on top of the gate, I was high on Coke and super drunk, and I lost my footing as I was going to jump down, and landed on both of my heels barefoot. And it was like 9 or 10 feet. So I just landed not appropriately, and hairline fractured both my feet, and ended up going inside, being locked out of our room, because I had mentioned I was suicidal a couple days prior. And so while I was coming down off Coke and booze, and my feet were throbbing, and I just felt super ashamed about the whole thing with the prostitute, I could hardly take it. And so I drugged the stool from the kitchen into the bathroom. I wrote a note. I tied the belt to the bars and around my neck. And I just stood there, and it felt like it was eternity. But that tragedy was really what sparked. So after that, I couldn't do it. I got down. We ended up making our way back to the States. Once we got back to the States, I was like, I never want to do this. I never want to make those same choices again. And I And so I wanted to get back into the men's work. Now I was introduced to the men's work a couple years before at Beloved Festival in Oregon. And it was called the New Masculine Program. And I remembered they were doing shadow work at this men's empowerment workshop at the festival. And I was like, what is, men were just like sobbing and gnashing because we were like letting our shadows embody us. And it was so visceral and attractive to me because it was real and raw. And so I ended up taking like that 7 or 8 week course. And so I had all those tools, but, I went back and did all that stuff in South America happened. So when I came back from South America, I was like, I'm going to do the work again. So I went back through all the course material again. And while I did it though, I was like, you know what? Like I invited a bunch of guys to do it with me. And so we went through it, and it was a really powerful experience to share that space with men. And so through that though, I was like, you know what? I want to do this myself. Like, I don't want to just share, like, this is wonderful information and I love sharing it with the other men in my life, but I really want to make this my own, in my own experience, and share the things I've learned in the men's work. And so I continued to really build it, and I was spending a lot of time like building slides and creating this really extensive course. And it went on for like a year or so of like really just, and then it fizzled because I went back to my old lifestyle and let my old beliefs and thought patterns and everything come back in. And so then I continued doing that. And then that was when the DUI happened. And that was really what set things off. So it was like over the years, I was gaining these tools, these little nuggets. And then I would come back to, this way of being that I knew. And, but I would say the three biggest, meditation is a huge tool. Meditation and visualization. It's a really simple one. And a lot of people are like, I don't know how to meditate. Like, how do I do it? And really I do all sorts of different meditations. Everything from just mindfulness meditation with the breath and focusing in on the sensations of the body, to doing full on like subconscious reprogramming, where I'll go down into my own subconscious and just ask for messages and, just get in touch with some of the first causal events and allow those things to be integrated. Journaling is another big one. That's another big tool I do, just to get things out and really allow for just to see what the subconscious says. And radical self-honesty, radical detachment, and sobriety was a big thing for me. Those were all very big tools.
I'm loving these stories, and yeah, you must have done clearly like, a lot of work on that shame to be able to, talk about these experiences so casually and without, holding that as, your identity, and, not being, in that story and carrying that subconscious shame. So are those like was that part of the process, just through like these journaling, the shadow work, and, the other meditation styles? Was that how you worked with the shame?
Yeah.
And then also, right, you said radical self-honesty. I mean, that's an incredible way to work with shame.
Yeah. And I think that was like a really big one and that was, radical self-honesty was what really led me into sobriety, because once I admitted that I was the problem, I became the solution. And I really just had to look at myself from that outside perspective, kind of allow myself to just pull back and be like, whoa, like no one else is to blame for my perceived misfortunes. Like there's no one else to blame. Not even my perceived circumstances are to blame, because I created the circumstances. Circumstances, we've been taught to look at everything backwards, where we in our world, in our culture, we're taught that, what you see is what you get, accept what is given to you, accept the cards you're dealt. And that the circumstantial evidence actually means like that's it. But it's actually the other way around, where we cause circumstantial evidence. And even so, circumstantial evidence doesn't mean anything. Like if you want something, all you have to do is visualize it, believe you can have it, believe you can be it, believe that that experience is in the cards for you, and literally ignore circumstantial evidence. Like if you want to be a millionaire, then you go, okay, well, because you just bypass all the thoughts, beliefs, and actions, and you go straight to being. And granted, all those things, there's still the work with all of that, like safely guarding your thoughts, going into your subconscious, asking for help when it comes to the belief systems, but really just being. You ask yourself, okay, well, what is how do I be a millionaire? What is it to be a millionaire? Well, what does a millionaire dress like? What does a millionaire feel like? What does a millionaire laugh like? What does a millionaire sleep like? And you really just go into this and you be it. And then the circumstantial evidence, because our thoughts create reality, our beliefs create reality, we create reality, because reality is it's a consciousness derived thing. So when you be whatever it is you are, I always like my thing I like to say is being is the nature of becoming. We're always thinking that what we're becoming is the future self. There is no future self that's apart from you in some other time. Time is not real. So everything exists simultaneously in the now. So if you want to become these future self qualities that you believe are in the future, you just be those things now. Like you be that now, and then it creates the circumstantial evidence that you desire. And so when I really started realizing that, which that took me a bit. At first, the radical self-honesty led to my sobriety. Sobriety gave me the clarity and the drive to really do the work. And I also created a lifestyle where those old patterns didn't work. Like, I woke up, now my morning routine is I exercise, I read, and I meditate every morning. And I wake up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. Because if I drink at night, I can't do those things. It's like if you drink at night, you're not going to wake up and want to go for a run. If you drink at night or, the day before, you're not going to want to wake up and read for 30 minutes. You're not going to want to journal for 30 minutes. You're not going to want to have the clarity to allow yourself to be still and experience God first thing in the morning and experience yourself, and which are the same thing. And yeah, and then radical detachment was a really big thing where I just had to allow myself to, and in prayer and meditation a lot, I would find myself communing with Source, just saying, you know what, I'm ready to completely let go of everything that I believe is true. I'm ready to let go of all of my knowledge. I'm ready to let go of who I think I am. And when I started having that dialogue with the universe and with Source and myself, I really began to open myself up to the vastness of who and what I truly am and what we truly are, which is Source. We are pure creative potential. And what dictates how that is created is our choices. And our choices come from our thoughts and our beliefs. And then our thoughts and beliefs come from our being, our state of being we're in. So if you can go to the state of being and, which I do affirmations every morning. I actually do like 5 pages of affirmations, and I'll change them depending on, as I evolve. And so that really gets me into, and I don't know if you guys I know you can't see it, but I have affirmations also pasted all over my house. So it's like if I'm walking around and I'm kind of pissed off, all of a sudden I'll like open a cupboard and it's like, I am forgiveness. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So having those reminders around really puts you, it helps keep you, guard your thoughts and your beliefs about yourself.
Yeah, that's certainly very important, but also, the whole concept. Well, couple things. First of all, yeah, talking about like this, the state of being. So many people get caught up in the when then. Oh, once I do this, then I'll have that. So yeah, if you're looking to make more money, or if it's health or weight loss, so once I lose weight, then I'll feel confident, or then I'll start dating, and then I'll do like these things I want to do. But when in, you be reality, be much better off flipping the script, like, just being confident now. What would a confident person, be like, or do? Then, do those things. And as you become more confident, then you'll feel, better in mind, and then that will reflect better in body. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
the
You hit the nail on the head.
also with the purpose and vision, I think is so important too. When you were talking about doing the certain things for, like, oh, if you drink, then you can't do all these other things. And because I get a lot of comments about, especially like, I work at a coach at a gym a couple times a week. Just, it's fun. I love interacting with people. But I get a lot of comments, all the time, just like, how I look and how I eat and stuff. But like, everyone just, oh yeah, that's just genetics, and it's this and that, and it's because of this, and it's because of, just like throwing out all these excuses at me as to why I am like healthy and in shape. But for me, it's purpose and vision. Like, I wouldn't do what I did if I didn't have a greater life vision, because there would be no point, like, to, I wouldn't have to be so clear in the mind. I wouldn't have to have so much energy if I didn't have so much to do, or if I didn't really care, or, if I was just at like a, job I didn't really like, I didn't have to be like on, point all day, and, all these things. And it's just like, then I wouldn't like take so much care. But it's, since I have, this overarching vision, it's just easier to do all those things, because like, I want to, and I have to, and I just do, because, like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do the other things. That's like, but if it's, so like, even when I like through seasons of, I won't have as much, certain things, or if I don't like, I kind of like let things slide. I'll go to eat more, or have a couple drinks here or there more. But then when I have like bigger things I'm working on, and then I tighten everything back up again. It kind of flows a little bit, but yeah. So like, it's not like a willpower thing. It's just because I have something bigger moving me. So it's just easy to make the decisions that are in alignment with that, because I want to feel good. I have to feel good. I really don't have
Yeah.
many other choices.
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. And I totally feel it, because I actually, a couple months ago, I was like, you know what, I want a glass of wine, and I think it was like 17 or 18 months sober, and enjoyed some wine. And so lately it's been like, here and there I'll have a little bit of wine, but Monday I actually drank more than I usually drink, which isn't much, but it was enough that it really just, I was like, oh my God, I do not, the next day on Tuesday, I was like, I do not miss this feeling at all. And it was the same thing. Like, there's so many things, even just working from home. I shouldn't say just working from home. All the work I do is it's demanding of spirit and clarity in mind. But it was just like, man, I had just, that fog was so, I was like, man, I do not miss this at all. Do not miss this at all.
Yeah.
And so it's just been like getting back into, today I feel, because yesterday was some funky business, but today I feel very, very clear and on point. So yeah.
And some people, I've seen people who are like super productive and very unhealthy. I'm like, I don't know how you do that.
I know, dude. Yeah.
I just have never been like that. Like, I've always been pretty prone to brain fog and struggled with that in the past. And like, if I'm not in tip top shape, I'm just feel pretty useless.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And especially like, because most of the work I do, I mean, pretty much all the work I do is either, it's spiritual and creative. And so it's like, for both of them, if I have any sort of brain fog, I feel completely useless. I'm like, I can't create music. I can't create visual art. I can't help you with, I can't help you.
Can't do anything. So how does being an empath relate to your story and now? And what is your idea of what that is?
So, as I said earlier, I think another big piece of why, well, and I didn't realize, as they say, hindsight's 2020. blah blah blah. But when I would, because I used to always, when I would party all the time and I would use these substances, I was just getting fucked up all the time, and I was always hanging around with people that I didn't really enjoy and I didn't really feel seen by. I'm always putting myself in these situations, but I would stay in them. And how I would stomach those experiences was through basically shutting down my intuition and my empathic nature through substances. And I would basically just shut it down so that it wouldn't bother me, because the moment I would sober up, I'd be like, why the fuck am I here? I'm feeling this energy does not feel good. I don't. And so since, recently, since I've really taken to a more healthy and clear and spiritual lifestyle, I can, my empathic and intuitive abilities have really, really expanded to where, I can feel into, I can feel into what other people are feeling, not only in that moment, but I can also, I can feel into people's struggles and fears without them saying anything. And which allows me to really be able to do work on an intuitive level and be very effective in that way with my ability to connect with other humans in that capacity. But it also gets really draining if I don't cut cords regularly and make sure that those energetic tethers are cut after, especially after some really intense interactions, but even with the small ones that just kind of come in passing. So I implement cord cutting quite a bit. Yeah, I would say that's what being an empath has really opened up in me, is because before I'd be like, whoa, what are some of these things I'm feeling? Like, these don't even feel like mine. And the more I've opened up to it, I've realized, oh, like, it isn't all mine. Like, I'm experiencing the energy of others, and I'm experiencing, yeah, like I can feel into that. So that's been my experience with being an empath, is being able to feel into others without language, without hearing their story, really just sitting with them, and I can just feel into it.
What about the kind of like the negative aspects of it? Have that, I think you mentioned, yeah, just like drinking a lot, trying to like numb the sensation and things like that. So do you think it has been, like a kind of a driving force for negative patterns of behaviors?
Being an empath?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I think so. I think that my being an empath was a really, because I think for a long time I didn't know how to interact with people. I didn't really, and that also, so I would isolate myself a lot. I would go out and party. Like, I would go on these like flip-flop benders where I'd go out and I would party and spend time with people that didn't really care about me and I didn't really care about them, but we enabled each other in our destructive patterns. And then I would feel extremely ashamed and guilty, and then I'd go hide for like a month or two. And I just didn't know balance. I didn't. And so that, like, being able to feel everything and then wanting to numb it, because I think I also wanted to just be as a kid, I never felt approved of. I didn't feel like I fit in. So I was always hanging out. I was always trying to be something that I wasn't. I was always trying to I was always trying to be someone that I am not. And that really just, which I am empathic, I'm intuitive, I'm sensitive, I'm creative. And I'm not like, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes I go through this, I don't know if it's a dilemma, but like this questioning, because part of me, like, even like this idea, for the healthy empath in this, ebook that's I'm launching in very, very soon, like maybe next week. And, in this program that's came up, I got the idea like years ago for it,
What's your
but
ebook
it's
called?
weight loss for empaths.
Ooh.
And and then like that was the main idea that's kind of came through, and then I was just kind of like kept saying like no to it, and then so that's why I was like, okay, well, I can do the healthy empath. I'm not gonna like create like a whole thing around weight loss for empaths, and then like that could be like just like a subsection of it. um so yeah, the dumb is like, I feel like, part of me like never necessarily like wanted to do this in a way, but like that's just like what kept coming to me, like what I was being guided to, or like spirit telling me in a way. And I would be like, sometimes I was just like, especially like the weight loss for empaths, because even in the name, it just, but then it kind of came through why with the name. And I was just like, that's, I don't know, I don't even like use the word weight loss, like, why are you telling me to do this, and like blah blah blah. But then as I was going through and writing it, there was a very interesting, oh, so yeah, well, so part of me still wonders, is like, why do you want me to be this messenger to, and like for empaths? And then something cool for like the weight loss for empaths, good. So yeah, a lot of empaths struggle with like their weight, and it has to do, part of it has to do with like the sensitivity that goes on with it. And as I was writing it, this idea came to for like the weight loss for empaths. So like weight loss, what it really meant was the weight of loss, and that we're all carrying the weight of loss. And so part of the process through that is that we need to grieve, right? And then it's like a loss of life, a loss of our innocence, the loss of anything really, and of who we are, of identity, our connection to God, our connection to spirit, our connection to just a world that's not all crazy. And then so I thought that was like pretty fascinating. So the journey through like that weight loss is connecting to what is the weight that we are carrying, what is the loss that we've experienced, and we need to transform and transcend that, to
Wow,
enter into
that is
our wholeness.
profound.
And yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. As I was writing it, I was like, whoa, I never would have thought of that. Certainly wasn't like my idea, but yeah, so it started to like make sense. And then another thing too, like this, for empaths too, sometimes I tell that one of the best advice for empaths, stop identifying as an empath, because it's so easy to diagnose yourself and come up with this story of being this person who is, oh, I'm an empath, so things are hard for me. Oh, I'm so sensitive. I feel so much, and that, so now I have to, that's the reason why you just use it to justify your negative behaviors. And so yeah, this concept is really continually transforming for me, and I don't have it completely down or understood yet. But I'm not exactly sure why I started talking about this.
Dude, no, I love it, because it's even in spirituality and relationship with source and being an empath, all of those things, it's still important to not attribute it to your identification system. And I think that's I love that you said that.
Yeah, okay, that you kind of brought me on track a little bit too of another point. And so something that as you were talking about, like the story and letting go of stories, but then after we heal something, there's a new story that's formed, and we need to assess that story as well, and then eventually write a new story. And I realized that the story that I created after going through all this was basically the story of little sensitive empathic Michael experiences some trauma, goes to war, and he's doing good for himself, but things are it's still hard for him because he went through that PTSD and blah blah blah, and still using this story as a way to justify staying small, and then also wanting to be like special and wanting people to almost like see you and empathize with you and support you and validate you in your smallness, in your story. So I don't have a particular question for you, but yeah, if you have any insights that come up as I say that, then I'd be happy.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I had something, and I'm having a total brain fart right now. Oh, yeah, and I think that's a big detriment that especially in social media, like validating each other's smallness and justifying our smallness. Um, it's chronic. It really is. And instead of, um, and it's just all that it labels. And I think nowadays, especially, like there's just so many labels for everything. And it seems like everyone's getting up in arms if they don't have a label. And that if you don't pay attention to the label, then there's a label for you. And there's just, and it's like, but what if we, don't use any of them? What if we don't, because none of them are real, none of these things are real. And I love how you talk about, like once you heal the old story, you come to terms with that old story, a new story is formed, that reframing experience occurs. And a lot of people, ask, well, how do you do that? And therein lies the rump, because it's not I always like to say it's not, if you're focusing on the how, then you're crippling yourself before you'll never get it done, because you already crippled yourself. You already took out your knees. You can't climb the mountain now, because focus on the what. Don't worry about the how. The how will present itself. The how will unfold as you unfold, but focus on the what and your why, and everything else will unfold. The how will reveal itself, but you must know what it is you want, what feeling you want to experience, whatever it is, and the why. What is your why? And that's a big thing too, is like, well, why do you want that? Why do you want this experience? Why do you want to feel that? Why do you want that relationship? Why do you want $1 million? Why do you want that house? Why do you want to travel the world? And then you just have to keep asking why. If they're like, well, because I want to see, I've never seen the world. Well, why do you want to travel, and why have you never seen the world? Well, because the world is beautiful. And it's like, well, why? And you just keep going why until it's, I love humanity and I want to, just love whatever it is. And because more often than not, the deep down why is the most substantial, and that's usually has to do with our drive to give and connect and contribute to others. And when you can really decide on that, then the how shows itself. But most of the time we're fucked from the start, because we focus on the how. Well, I don't understand how that could happen. It's like, throw away your logic and reason and science. Like, those things are real. They're there, but they're just tools. Like, if you want,
Yeah.
I like imagination.
Yeah. Being so focused on that how is, you just limit yourself, because, the physical mind's trying so hard to understand how something might happen, but it a lot of times it can't, right? It can only process the present. It can't understand, the future and what's coming and how it's going to happen. It can only deal with really like the past, and kind of processing it from there. So you will have to embark on a journey and allow the experiences, and people, places, things to come to you and to unfold, as you go through and write, that new story, whatever you're working on.
Dude. And that actually, it reminds me of, when I was I practiced Christianity. It was a lot of the prayers I would ask, and I feel like a lot of people would ask, was like, praying for things to be different, praying for different circumstantial evidence. So being like, I pray that this doesn't happen. I'm praying to God that this does happen, this doesn't happen, prevent me from this, make it so I can avoid this, instead of saying, affirming and praying for courage and strength and allowance and understanding to handle any hardship that comes one's way. And it's just such a different thing, because we are capable. And it's like, and if getting hung up on the how, I feel like, is that first way of prayer. Like, I don't understand how that can happen. How can I make this happen? It's like, don't worry about that. Just ask God or source or the universe or whichever dogmatic terminology you like. Just focus on having the courage and the strength and the confidence and the persistence to handle anything. And you will.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It doesn't have to be, yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of. The worst thing that can happen is you can die, and that's not even the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
There's so many other worse things that can happen than death.
Yeah. So yeah, right, because you have to come to realize that no one's coming to save you, right? And you are that savior. And so praying for, right, yeah, the strength and the courage and the surrender and the prosperity, the grace to flow through all these things, instead of praying for something to change, and just why won't just that, and all the frustration. And I get that message constantly, even though when I think I am doing those things. And I had it again huge a few weeks ago now, and a very traumatic psilocybin mushroom experience. And it was
how much did you, what was your dose?
6 grams.
Ooh, also that's almost a quarter.
Yeah, I don't know much about all that.
But what was your experience like?
So it was going crazy a bit.
Were you in like your house, or were you out like in nature? Oh,
I was here in my house, home alone. And so I learned so much from it, but I could, like, just part of me wanted to, I was experiencing a lot of just pressure and overwhelm. So I wanted to, subconsciously, I wanted to take like a higher dose that's going to give me basically one of those, complete, death experiences where you kind of just, out in your own little, whatever you want to call it. And that's just not at all what happened, right? I just wanted to die. I wanted to go in. I wanted to die, kind of like, if you do some like, well, I guess people have that experience with mushrooms. But like if I've done like the 5-MeO DMT, the toad, right, which was just complete oblivion, right? Like there is no you, there's no identity, there's just pure experience. Like, you're not in this world, you don't have a body, like there's no observer, there's just nothing. Like, so I was almost like craving an experience like that, right? Because I just wanted to die. I didn't want to feel the pressures of life, right? And that's been like a cycle and pattern where this, like, desperation and dread start to creep in. And then so that I could, going in, I just wanted to, I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna I'm gonna get some, and then it's gonna be all light, and I'm gonna connect with some higher guidance. I'm gonna bring back some wisdom with me, and it's gonna be wonderful. And that's not what happened.
Oh, dude,
not what happened at all. Just,
dude, I've experienced those as well, and they are, you're like, oh, this. So what did happen? I mean,
so I basically ended up embodying these different archetypes that exist within my mind and the mind of humans in the collective. The biggest one was the madman, also known as, like, the Mad Hatter or the Joker, whatever you want to call him. And
I love that archetype. Very
much like that new Joker movie, very much like him. And it was, like, just in there. But so why this like felt so traumatic with me, and afterwards I was like, what the fuck? And because the time I did mushrooms before, I did 4 grams, and I did it like at a friend's house, and it was so incredible. It was so amazing. It was all about play, like really teaching me how to play lightly, as amazing. A soul. And it was just so phenomenal. And I just felt amazing during it and amazing after, and so great. This was not like that at all in any way, shape, or form. But so part of the reason why it seems so traumatic was because it was fully embodied. It wasn't like these, just lie down, put on your little sleep mask, and then you go into this dimension, and then you have your experience there in that world. Like, kind of like when I did ayahuasca in a group of people, that's how it was like. This was not like that. It was just me, just fully incarnate, fully in my body, just pure madman in the living room, fucking just going crazy through these thought forms and these thought loops and these cycles, and exploring the absurdity of the world, and like looking out the window and just seeing how absurd everyone is and how absurd everything is, and just like having all these like realizations, like, oh my god, like we live in a world of I told you so. And right, like everything just exists because somebody said so. And so now we
Wow.
live in this world of I told you so because somebody said so at some point in time, and that's the only thing keeping everything in place is because somebody said so. And now we're all doing these made up rules because somebody said so, and now everyone's all angry because these people told them so, like that's what they were, even though that's not who they are. So now they're angry, and I'm just like going wild in these different like thought loops and like and then there's a few other archetypes too, but the biggest one, the main, was the madman. There was like this conspiracy theorist too, who just basically thinks the world and people are out to get them and judging them. That's the one who kind of like, is afraid of criticism in a way, because criticism is just what you think other people are saying, not what other people are saying most of the time, right? Or just your reaction to it. So like there's this like conspiracy theorist who's just looking out the window thinking things that aren't true. I'm just like looking out the window, like all these people, everyone's like watching me. I wonder if they can see me, but it's like literally no one's home at all. There's like nothing in sight anywhere. It's like nobody's watching, nobody can see me, and then just like went through like all these different thought loops and just embodied these different things, and just it was very like some of the things were just like hilarious that were coming through, but it was also just trying. And the madman kept laughing, and he was saying, "Cause I'm a fucking madman," and then he would burst out into this like laughter, like the Joker, right? He just couldn't stop laughing, but it wasn't like a very fun laugh.
Like a scary cackle.
Although at the time it kind of was. It was just, just like the pure madness, right? And it was just reflective of the absurdity of the world, the absurdity of the mind, even. And then so one of the main like messages from him, that's why I talk about like stories a lot, is like this thing that came through is we are stories telling themselves. And I managed to write that down.
Man, I like that.
Yeah. And then at the end, once it was coming down and I was like looking in the mirror again, there was a whole point of me looking in the mirror, going through all these different like characters, telling all these ridiculous stories. But then as it was coming down, I was looking in the mirror and it was like, I said, like, no, we are stories telling themselves. So what story do you want to tell? And I was like,
I love that.
Yeah. So I just kind of answered. And then, part of me also wanted to reflect on, how can I be right? I want to hear about time. Oh, my authentic self, express my authentic self. Like, how can I, my true nature. And so I wanted to learn about that. And it was just like the idea that I had in my head of that was so wrong. And then like this experience at the end was basically like, I'll tell you how, here you go. Keep it real. Say what you feel. That's it.
That's it. I love it.
Because we have these ideas in our head of like this like grander vision of like, oh, what our ideal self is. We want to be that person, but like that's not that. Like no, that's not.
It is you. It's every single archetype. It's every feeling. It's every thought. The only thing that changes it is like, what are you choosing out of? What are you? Yeah, like, because there is like the true authentic self isn't good. Like there are times where anger will serve you. There are times where like, guess what? You might need to call on that warrior archetype. If some of you are being threatened, your loved ones are being threatened, something that you hold dear, or maybe it's just there's someone isn't showing integrity and you need to call on that warrior to be assertive. Like there's an appropriate time for that. Just as there's an appropriate time for the archetype of the guru to come out and be all encompassing in love and compassion and wisdom. And, the list goes, there's a time for the madman to dance around and frolic and laugh and cackle and just be one with the absurdity of the world.
And so the madman and like the full expression is the Joker and the Tarot, right? So that's yes, full circle, right? And that's but that also relates to the experience before, which did feel good, right? The two opposites is like heaven and hell of these two of this archetype, because one was life is a game, play, have fun, live lightly. You really are a soul, like playing a game, just like have fun, like seriously. And then and that's like the fool child, just like so that's like the return of the innocent child. And then the more, I guess, like negative expression would be of that fool archetype would be the madman, which is like oh, nothing's real, like, so nothing matters, everything is so absurd, blah blah blah, and like, like, no empathy, and just like not actually like having fun with it, but just like fucking crazy. And so I
I
can see
love
how like
that.
those two back-to-back experiences are just like complete polar opposites.
Yeah, because I actually, the madman was one of my favorite archetypes, and it still is. Like, I would say my favorite kind of villains in movies, like Joker is hands down one of my all-time favorites, and like Hannibal Lecter, because I'm just like, they're fucking crazy. They're just out of their minds. They're lunatics. But I'm like, but they're so smart, and they just have this like, they're just like, like, I don't know what it is about them, but I'm just like, and I think too, like I would always, especially back in when I was really lost in the programming, like, and I mean, I was doing a lot of psychedelics and I mean, every other kind of drug under the sun. And it was, it would be that, like you're saying, that polar switch of, I'm going to be a free spirit and I'm playing and I'm just literally just playing this human game. I'm going to have fun. And then the other side would be full blown madness, where I indeed get that kind of romanticism of that madness, the madman in his ivory tower cursing the village people.
Yeah, I legit thought like the cops were coming to take me to the loony bin, and then I was debating. I was like, how am I going to convince them that I'm not crazy? And then I just like saw this like super angry cop coming out, and I was like, oh, that guy, he's like, and I saw that he's just so angry because he lives in this world of I told you so, where people put so many rules onto him because they said so, and he doesn't know who he is, and now he's so angry. And I was like, and I'm the crazy one.
That is spot on.
But yeah, it was nuts. It was like, and then I mean, it took like weeks of calling like every friend I had, working with like my friend / therapist, doing like working like all kinds of different things to kind of just come back to myself or figure out what myself means more so. Yeah. After that experience, it was rugged. Like
that sounds super rugged, man.
Yeah, but that it's part of like being human and relating to that. And you've been, when last time we talked, you mentioned this like art of being human. So what is been coming up for you with that? For me, it's just, I feel like it's just like so much is just like the whole like keep it real concept, keep it real, keep it, say what you feel, and has been helping me with being human. But so what has been coming your way with that?
For me, I tend to struggle with, I think, my mentors are.
It's been an hour. Are you good to answer this? I said also, I just noticed the time. Okay.
Oh yeah. No, I'll answer this. Yeah. And it's like interacting with so many other spiritual teachers and like having just these luminary mentors. I think too, it's not just that, but I've always struggled with having this unrealistic like standard of perfection for myself, where like I forget that I'm human, or I have difficulty, like sometimes I have difficulty accepting that I'm human, and I'm like, no, I should be responding in a different way. I should be having a different experience. And so I think for me, the art of being human is through allowing yourself to be as you are now, and not just like taking it as it comes. Like you can still create who you are and be as you are, but also like there are going to be days where you're in a funk. There's going to be days where, thoughts are coming up that are driving you nuts. And it's important to just allow yourself to be and love yourself through that experience. Because I definitely forget to do that sometimes. And I'll be going through, I'll just be being human and having difficulty accepting that and allowing myself to just be it. And I'll be like, I should be experiencing something else or be
I'm supposed to be an enlightened master.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be enlightened. I should just evaporate from my body already. Where is it? And it's like, nope. Guess what? I got flesh stuff, and, you know, brain juices and all that good stuff. And this is my experience, and I need to love it and have play. And I think that's another big thing too, is the art of being human. I think it's playing. You know, we get so serious. We get so serious about things. And in
Why
Lost
so serious?
Yeah. Why so serious?
I know all about that.
And so it's like, you know, just, and because we all, you know, the more playful and fun we are having, the more successful we actually are, and the happier we are, and the more prosperous we are. Like, it's, yeah. So it's just having fun, playing, allowing, accepting. Yeah, I would say those are big things for me with the art of being human.
Yeah. I used to have a notepad on in one of the note apps. I would bring it up, look at it during the day, and one of the questions that would be there would be like, are you taking things too seriously? And the answer was almost always yes.
I know. I love one of my questions I'll ask myself. I think it's Eckhart Tolle. Yeah, I think it's in The Power of Now. And he said a question to ask yourself is, what is wrong with this present moment right now? And when you ask yourself that and you really look around, whatever it is, whatever the situation is, you can never find anything wrong. Like, even in a situation where you feel like it could be the worst situation ever, you're like, no, I'm with another human being who's beautiful, is a reflection of me. I'm in my house, I'm on my couch, I have food, whatever it is, most of the time you can never find anything truly wrong with the present moment. And it's always like, okay, so I'm just being a dingleberry.
All in the head.
Yeah.
I was talking to my cousin about this the other day, as with like the insights from, you know, the reflections I've been doing from the previous madman, and, you know, everything about, right, like the mind, and how even all like my other plant medicine journeys, not all of them, but most of them have been pretty much, actually all of them except for the toad I mentioned. There's only been like a handful of things I did, but they largely related to the mind and to, you know, thinking and thoughts and thought forms and beliefs, and right, like the power in that, right? Because we even mentioned it a little bit here, and you hear it all everywhere. Oh, your thoughts create your reality. But I don't know, I find, so a lot of people, you know, teaching that or saying that, it doesn't come off as like that useful to someone. So that's why, like, you know, we talked about like, well, how do you do that? And then, you know, you have to allow this whole process to unfold, because to just like, oh, I just gotta like, think harder, think better, you know? There's so much that goes into it, and I'm only now like revisiting a lot of that stuff, actually being able to really go through it in the way that just like thoroughly being able to do it, because there was just, right, if there's so much, just if your mind's so wild, or if you have so much, you know, unconscious trauma, you know, stored emotions in the body, you're not going to really be able to, you know, go through that process, or utilize a lot of the different things. Like I used affirmations in the past, and there's no way that could ever override what was going on underneath the hood.
Oh yeah,
but now,
dude.
Now I'm coming back to it because I'm at such a different place.
Yeah. And you know, it's because I definitely feel the same way. If I had tried doing affirmations, and that's a big piece of it too, is you have to believe the affirmations. Like, you could sit and you could read affirmations every day, but if you don't believe them, then you're literally just reading stuff out loud. Like, you have to believe.
You could feel worse.
Yeah. And it's, you know, and it's fun too, because I didn't even know that this stuff was possible, but now I'm actually getting to a point where, like, not normal thoughts, but like things that I used to, like, I would let ruin my day, like fearful thoughts and paranoid thoughts and self-deprecating thoughts will pop up, and I literally will just tell them to fuck off. And I'm just like, okay, fuck off. You're done. Like, I'm not paying attention to you, because what we give attention to expands, and what we take our attention away from dissolves. So it really comes down to just, it's a shift in attention. It's a shift in focus. So, you know, like in times where maybe you're stressing about the dollars in your bank account, you can instead shift that stressful focus to focusing on gratitude for what you do have, focusing for, on gratitude for the money that is in your bank account. And even thinking back to a time where you felt super grateful for all the abundance of money you had in an earlier time. And that actually, when you can, reuse the past in that way, revisit the past in that way, you reawaken that feeling in the now, and that actually sets you up to create that feeling again by revisiting that.
Yeah, I've been just using laughter, especially right with the
it's so good.
with the madman. So yeah, using laughter with these thoughts as they come, like then I'll laugh at them, or I'll just like I'll speak directly to the madman. Like, so I have like some thought will go by, and I'll just be like, "You're a fucking madman," and then I'll just start like laughing, and then it completely neutralizes it, and then you're allowed to choose something else or feel something else.
The interruption. I love how the interruptions. I think Tony Robbins actually talked about doing interruptions where he's like, think about the energy imbued in the word pissed off or being angry. He's like, just feel that. Like, feel how much negative energy is imbued in those words. He's like, now take one of those words and switch it to peeved. I'm so peeved. Because if you try and say that seriously, you're like, oh, I'm peeved. And then you're gonna be like, oh my God, I sound like a freaking and then you just laugh and you're like, okay, well, and it totally interrupts your emotional pattern, and then you're free to choose something else that serves you better.
My mind's still thinking about how I connected it a little bit, but still really seeing these two previous experiences, different sides of the same piece of the same whole, is really kind of fascinating me right now. I feel like I've just had this huge wow, because in the first one, it was even saying like, why so serious, but then you take that deeper into the madman, the Joker, and how he used to say that too, and I'm just really fascinated with all that right. But I'm feeling good. It seems like a good place to stop for now.
This was great. This was a lot of fun, dude.
It was a pleasure, and have to do it again because I feel like I kind of started talking at the end. I was just so interested in listening to what I wanted to hear what you had to say and really enjoying those stories. But now I also feel like I could just talk all day. But so where can people connect with you from here?
iawesome.com, IAUSM.com. That's the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery. And it's an online social community and learning platform. And so it's just a lot of people are experiencing awakening, and this is a safe space where people can come together and learn about things that are coming into their awareness. And then there's Facebook and Instagram, which Instagram is actually it's Debo Shimmy Pimp. It's my hand. So DEBO Shimmy Pimp, all one word, all lowercase. And but and then I have a Spotify. My musical moniker is a Lover with a period at the end. There's also, I'm all over the place. If you guys want to, if you're interested in doing the men's work or just want to connect, Dylan at iawesome.com. That's DYLAN at IAUSM.com. And I would love to meet y'all, talk with y'all, and connect with y'all.
All right. Well, thanks again. And let's do it again.
Yeah, let's definitely do this again.
All right. Take care.
All right. You as well, Mike.